And another one done. This month we read The Everlasting Man by G.K. Chesterton. I cannot do justice to The Everlasting Man, so bear with me. I would say it is the best out of the three. It reminds me a lot of Mere Christianity, but much more detailed. It reminds me as well of Logos Rising by Dr. E. Michael Jones, which I am in the middle of reading, so I haven't finished it, but it's very, very good. The Everlasting Man is a response to G.H. Wells. It's G.K. Chesterton's response to H.G. Wells. G.K. Chesterton, H.G. Wells. Okay. Hello. Just like every month I say, if you haven't joined yet, please join the Catholic Reads 2023 challenge. This month we are going to read The Path to Rome by Hilaire Belloc. Once a month we have a discussion online talking about the book, what we liked, and there's also a Telegram group where you can share your favorite passages. I'll share mine with you, motivate each other to read, and so I would love to have you join, and you can sign up to that in the link below. There comes an hour in the afternoon when the child is tired of pretending, when he is weary of being a robber or a Red Indian. It is then that he torments the cat. There comes a time in the routine of an ordered civilization when the man is tired of playing mythology and pretending that a tree is a maiden or that the moon made love to a man. Men not only ceased to believe in gods, but they realized that they had never believed in them. They had sung their praises. They had danced around their altars. They had played the flute. They had played the fool. Everlasting Man is a historical apologetics book. So even in the beginning he states that the view suggested is historical rather than theological and does not deal directly with the religious change which has been the chief event of my own life. It's divided into two parts. The first part is called On the Creature Called Man, and the second part is On the Man Called Christ. So I believe it's one of those books that, as a convert, I wish I had read before. I don't know why it took me so long. I did read Heretics and Orthodoxy, and Heretics made me laugh a lot when I was in the process of converting when I read it. So this is an essential, I believe, apologetics book for everyone to read. Like I said, I'm not gonna do any justice to this book. I'm just gonna tell you straight up, it's just too good. It's classic Chesterton. I love reading Chesterton. He's just very funny. He's very witty. And you get those classic Chesterton lines that remind you a bit, well, they might remind me of whenever Christ talks, when Christ says things like, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Chesterton has his way of doing that. The statement that the meek shall inherit the earth is very far from being a meek statement. The truth is that when critics have spoken of the local limitations of the Galilean, it has always been a case of the local limitations of the critics. In truth, the Church is too unique to prove herself unique, for most popular and easy proof is by parallel, and here there is no parallel. See what I mean? He starts off with the man in the cave, prehistoric man, painting animals in the cave. We tend to impose our psychology onto these paintings, whereas what we can actually get out of it is very plain and simple, that the man that drew these paintings is a man. Meaning that the man is different from animals. We are the only thing, a living and conscious being in this world that creates art, that distinguishes us from animals. Animals don't create art. And that should tell you something about yourself and about human beings in general, that we are something quite special. All we can say of this notion of reproducing things in shadow or representative shape is that it exists nowhere in nature, except in man, and that we cannot even talk about without treating man as something separate from nature. In other words, every sane or sort of history must begin with man as man, a thing standing absolutely alone. This creature was truly different from all other creatures because he was a creator, as well as a creature. The fact that we can create things is very unique to us human beings. Animals don't do that. So that's one thing I really liked about it's in the very beginning. Comparing religions. We've all heard it before. All religions are the same. Man invented religion because we were trying to cope with the fact that we're going to die one day, and this is, creating God and gods is for us to feel better about the fact that we're going to die one day. And that all religions are the same and they all believe the same thing, which is not true. He argues, first of all, that there are certain things that are not religion and that are just a way of thinking. For example, Buddhism. I quite like the part where he compared Buddhism to Christianity. Buddhism, I think today, is a very misunderstood belief. It is not a religion. It is a way of life. Yes, it is a way of thinking, a philosophy, but it is not a religion. Buddhism is very reliant on the self and your mind. For example, in the case of suffering, it's all in your mind. Whatever happens to you physically, no matter how painful it is, it's all in your mind. Everything is but an illusion. If once a man realized that there is really no reality, that everything, including his soul, is in disillusion at every instant, he would anticipate disappointment and be intangible to change, existing insofar as he could be said to exist, in a sort of ecstasy of indifference. The Buddhists call this beatitude, and we will not stop our story to argue the point. Certainly to us, it is indistinguishable from despair. Asia in general has this very old way of thinking, this very eternal way of thinking is what he says. It doesn't mean that it's older than Europe. It just doesn't change. It doesn't move forward. It stays stagnant. The mind of Asia can really be represented by a zero. The great Asiatic symbol of a serpent with its tail in its mouth is really a very perfect image of a certain idea of unity and recurrence that does indeed belong to the Eastern philosophies and religions. It really is a curve that in one sense includes everything, and in another sense comes to nothing. Like in Hinduism, the fact that you have reincarnation, there is no progression. You are just in this wheel that just never ends. It doesn't get better, or it gets better and then gets worse, and it never stops. The cross has become something more than a historical memory. It does convey, almost as by mathematical diagram, the truth about the real point at issue, the idea of a conflict stretching outwards into eternity. Christianity does appeal to a solid truth outside itself, to something which is in that sense external as well as eternal. It does declare that things are really there, or in other words, that things are really things. In this, Christianity is at one with common sense, but all religious history shows that this common sense perishes, except where there is Christianity to preserve it. They could not believe that religion is really not a pattern, but a picture. Like the first artist in the cave, it revealed to incredulous eyes the suggestion of a new purpose in what looked like a wildly crooked pattern. He seemed only to be distorting his diagram when he began for the first time in all the ages to trace the lines of a form and of a face. So Christianity, unlike many Eastern philosophies, does look outward. It looks outward to Christ. It's not just all here. It's not just all in the mind. It is the soul and the body. Oh yes, he talked about dogmas. I'm a fan of dogma. What the denouncer of dogma really means is not that dogma is bad, but rather that dogma is too good to be true. Dogma gives man too much freedom when it permits him to fall. Dogma gives even God too much freedom when it permits him to die. This is so true. We think that we know best, but God knows way better. Like when you're younger and you have this whole idea of what it's like to be an adult or what it's like to be this and that, and then you realize a lot of the times it's much greater than what you thought it would be. And that's the reality of these dogmas, these rules that we follow, especially in the Catholic Church, because a lot of the times people think like, oh, this dogma is just, limiting to us, and it's we're not, our worth is not being recognized. No, it is recognized so much that with these limitations, you are able to fulfill whatever God intended you to do. And it's always greater than what we think that we want or we think that we are able to do. The moral of all this is an old one, that religion is revelation. In other words, it is a vision, and a vision received by faith. But it is a vision of reality. The faith consists in a conviction of its reality. That, for example, is the difference between a vision and a daydream, and that is the difference between religion and mythology. The Catholic faith is the reconciliation, because it is the realization both of mythology and philosophy. It is a story, and in that sense, one of 100 stories. Only it is a true story. It is a philosophy, and in that sense, one of 100 philosophies. Only it is a philosophy that is like life. But above all, it is a reconciliation because it is something that can only be called the philosophy of stories. We are Christians and Catholics, not because we worship a key, but because we have passed a door and felt the wind that is the trumpet of liberty blow over the land of the living. And lastly, I really like the part where he describes how unusual Christ is. And the religion, Christianity, Catholicism, is very bizarre. It is unlike any other religion. You have God come down as man, as the most vulnerable thing in the world. And yet that vulnerable and weak thing has the most power. God, Christ, came not to live, but to die. But as humanity grows greater, it grows less and less likely to do so. God is God, as the Muslims say. But a great man knows he is not God. And the greater he is, the better he knows it. That is the paradox. Everything that is merely approaching to that point is merely receding from it. Socrates, the wisest man, knows that he knows nothing. A lunatic may think he is omniscience, and a fool may talk as if he were omniscient. But Christ, in another sense, omniscient, if he not only knows, but knows that he knows. But he never made his morality dependent on the existence of the Roman Empire, or even on the existence of the world. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Christ wasn't a product just of his time. Many people say, oh, he believed that and he taught that because it was that time. No, Christ was never specific about his time. It was true back then, it's true today, and it will be true tomorrow. I could go on, but I want to leave you with this one line that is very, very Chesterton and sums up the whole book. For it was the soul of Christendom that came forth from the incredible Christ, and the soul of it was common sense. Anyway, what did you guys think of The Everlasting Man? Have you read it? And if you haven't, you should. It should be on your to-read list right now. Read it this month if you want. If you have read it, what did you think? Did you have a favorite part? I really need to reread. I say this with every book that I read, but I got to reread this one several times with several different parts because there was also a lot of history, and if you've been with me for a while, you know that my brain when it comes to history just... Anyways, I will see you in the next one. The Path to Rome by Hilaire Belloc. To every honest reader that may purchase, hire, or receive this book, and to the reviewers also, to whom it is of the triple profit, greeting and whatever else can be had for nothing. If you should ask how this book came to be written, it was in this way. One day, as I was wandering over the world, I came upon the valley where I was born, and stopping there a moment to speak with them all, when I had argued politics with the grocer, and played the great lord with the notary public, and had all but made the carpenter a Christian by force of rhetoric. What should I note, after so many years, but the old tumble-down and gaping church, that I love more than mother, church herself, all scraped, white, rebuilt, noble and new, as though it had been finished yesterday, knowing very well that such a change had not come from the skinflint populace, but was the work of some just artist, who knew how grand an ornament was this shrine. But there before our people stormed Jerusalem. I entered and there saw that all within was as new, accurate, and excellent as the outer part. And this pleased me as much as though a fortune had been left to us all. For one's native place is the shell of one's soul, and one's church is the kernel of that nut. Moreover, saying my prayers there, I noticed behind the high altar a statue of Our Lady, so extraordinary and so different from all I had ever seen before, so much the spirit of my valley, that I was quite taken out of myself and vowed a vow there to go to Rome on pilgrimage and see all Europe which the Christian faith has saved. And I said, I will start from the place where I served in arms for my sins. I will walk all the way and take advantage of no wheeled thing. I will sleep rough and cover 30 miles a day, and I will hear Mass every morning, and I will be present at High Mass in St. Peter's on the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul.